Are you dreaming of learning a foreign language but not sure if it's even possible for you to do it all by yourself? But did you know there are hundreds, if not thousands of people who learn languages on their own and achieve pretty good results? Would you like to be one of them? Today I'll try to show you how. And before we begin, just a little disclaimer. Today I'm gonna bring you some tips and advice based on my own experience. And as you may already know, sometimes when something works out for one person, doesn't work out for another one. So take this video as a guide of general rules on how you can learn languages at home on your own from my perspective. I've been thinking for a while about what exactly I can place on the first rule before I came to the conclusion that every time before we start learning any foreign language, the first and the main thing that we should understand and think about is, why am I going to get acquainted with this particular language? Your reasons may be different. In my case, I began learning English by myself just because I fell in love with one Irish band and was simply willing to understand their songs and interviews. Even though later I did start learning English with a tutor, just in order to be able to pass the English final school exam, which at that time it was impossible for me to do it on my own. With Spanish it was totally different. I began my Spanish study journey for family purposes, so to speak. My husband's native language is Spanish, so I had to start learning Spanish sí o sí, as they say, in order to simply be able to communicate, at least somehow, and be able to emerge into the culture. As for French and Hindi, these are the languages I'm interested in myself. Both cultures fascinate me, which really helps me to learn these languages quite easily, I'd say. So that was my own why for every language I'm learning, and I honestly see it as the basis of language learning in general. This is the first thing you should think of and understand before starting learning any foreign language. Why am I interested in this particular language? Why am I going to begin learning it? It may be a pure interest. You may be in love with the country where that language is spoken, or else you need this specific language in order to get a job, perhaps in another country, or your boyfriend or girlfriend's native language is different from yours, etc. Understand and remember your why, because sometimes when you're lazy and unmotivated to keep learning the language, you remember your why. Put yourself together and keep going. Remembering why you started learning the language in the first place will help you stay motivated, will help you continue your study process, your study journey when you feel unmotivated. At least for me personally, that works fine all the time. The second rule, I think I'm gonna name when, and it'll actually depend on your answer and your thoughts to the first one. Make a plan of when you're going to study and be able to organize yourself. It goes without saying that if you're planning to learn a language as your hobby, or else you need to pass an exam or get a new job that requires you to speak this particular language fluently, each of these situations will be different, and your study plan will be changing depending on how serious your situation is. But if you need to hurry up in your study process, or else you simply understand that it'll be too hard, too difficult for you to organize yourself, to stay consistent, to stay motivated all the time, to remember about all the study sessions you have to do, you may really think about searching for a tutor that will always help you stay consistent and will simply help you out with everything. That's actually why I myself continued learning English with a tutor, with such a limited time that I had to prepare for an English exam at school, that was impossible for me to do everything on my own. So without my tutor's help, I wouldn't probably have achieved the results that I have achieved. So you need to think and decide for yourself your study plan. How much time a week you can dedicate to your study sessions. I recommend you to add this little plan of your study sessions into your diary, journal, agenda, whatever. The main thing here is that you'll be able to see every week there's a study session pending in your to-do list. So probably you won't forget about it. Making such study plan for every week will help you at least a bit to stay consistent. Try to stick to your plan. Let's say it's 3 or 4 hours a week. Try your best to do it. Soon you'll see that it may become a good habit of yours. Well, of course, let yourself take a rest sometimes. Here it's interesting, by the way, because if you're learning a foreign language just for your hobby, just for your pleasure, you won't probably even need to organize yourself simply because it's something you want and something you enjoy. I, for example, don't usually even need any reminders to have my Spanish, French or Hindi study sessions, simply because I want to have these study sessions. This is something I'm really into. Well, and plus because I don't have to hurry up with these languages, so it's mostly just enjoying the process in my case. The next and very important thing to do if you'd like to learn languages on your own is to do a big internet research on those materials you're gonna be using. Nowadays, we don't have any problems with that at all. The internet is literally full of ebooks, textbooks of all kinds. It might be difficult, though, if your target language is, let's say, not very popular among language learners. I myself had this, don't know how to call it, difficulty or inconvenience when it turned out that there weren't many materials for Hindi as I had previously mistakenly hoped for. So it took me quite a while to find a proper student and workbook for beginners in Hindi, which luckily has a lot of cultural information about India, and this is, to be honest, a huge advantage. Try to look for those textbooks that will not only bring you grammar or listening, which is another important thing we'll have a closer look at just in a moment, but also cultural information, which is going to keep your interest up, to keep you motivated, so you'll be in love with both the language and its culture. And this is something essential when it comes to learning languages on our own, because there's no tutor to give us some specific facts or insights about the language, to give us some information about the culture of the language. You'll have to look it up all by yourself. It'll be just amazing if the textbook you're working with will help you with that. And the last rule I decided to name, what if? What if there is no one to help you? What if there is no one to give you some advice? When we're on our own trying to learn a foreign language, we from time to time really need a guidance, especially when it comes to pronunciation and grammar. Our mistakes should be corrected in order to simply continue learning this language in a correct way, right? What you need to do is, first, to find student and workbook with keys, so you won't have any problems to self-check. If you're lucky enough, you'll be able to also find all those transcriptions for audio tasks, for listening tasks, but try not to overuse them, if you know what I mean. And secondly, listen to native speakers as much as you can, especially if you're in that transition from beginner to elementary or pre-intermediate level. YouTube's full of everything. Again, if your target language is, let's say, less popular than English, French or Spanish, I'm anyways sure there must be something. The thing that you'll need to do is to use every material available to you on full. And lastly, I'd like to add a couple of more advice which can make your study process a little bit easier. At least I hope so. I don't think I have to remind you about all those internet resources that we have. Busu, Duolingo, special websites focusing on and aiming at particular languages. That is all great, but please don't limit yourself with language learning apps only. They are great, they are of great help sometimes, really. But don't forget about real books. I don't mean necessarily paper books, it can be an e-book, magazines, textbooks. Trust me, sometimes they may make your language level skyrocket. Another thing we should remember about is language learning nowadays is really easy. One of the reasons to this is that there are so many forums, so many groups and communities where you can not only ask for advice to correct something, to ask about this specific word, its pronunciation and how to use it, but there's also a possibility to find a pen friend if, of course, this is something you're interested in. There's so much work and commitment when it comes to learning languages on our own. But I guess every language learner will say that it's so much fun and it can bring so much joy into your life, becoming one of your hobbies. For me, honestly, there's only one answer to the question, how can I learn languages by myself? And it's be in love with the language and its culture. As long as your interest and love towards this language is alive, you will be learning this language with pleasure. Just remember not to be hard on yourself and be patient, because you're already doing a great and amazing job by yourself. Hope you found my tips and advice useful and helpful. If it's so, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. If you'd like to get a monthly dose of language learning tips from me and just to support my channel, find the link in the video description, and don't forget to join the newsletter on my website, which is totally free. Thank you for coming till the end, and till the next one.